Deep in the heart of the Utah desert lies Frisco, a town whose very dirt is equally stained with silver and with blood. In the 1880s, this remote spot was home to the richest silver mine on Earth. But in just a few short years, it earned the infamous title, the toughest town in the Great Basin. They said the Frisco graveyard needed a new body every single day. But how did a city with so much wealth and so much violence completely disappear after a single night of catastrophe? Stick around to uncover the full story. Utah, the town built on silver and sin. The Utah desert is a land of stark, breathtaking beauty and brutal silence. But deep within the mineral mountains, near what is now a cluster of crumbling stone and rusted metal, the silence is deceiving. It's the silence of a town that once roared, a place where fortunes were made and lives were cheap. This is Frisco. To look at it today, a lonely collection of ruins dominated by the remarkable, yet desolate, beehive charcoal kilns, you'd never guess that this stretch of forgotten highway was once the most notorious boomtown in the American West. It was a place so intensely wealthy and so profoundly violent that it earned a reputation far darker than any gold or silver it produced. This was no ordinary mining camp. This was a crucible of greed, ambition, and unchecked lawlessness. They called it the toughest town in the Great Basin. The legend of Frisco is the ultimate boom-to-bust tale, a town that sprang into existence with astonishing speed, fueled by an unprecedented geological miracle, only to violently self-destruct and fade into the unforgiving Utah dust. The earth here holds secrets, not just of buried treasure, but of the fierce, desperate men who fought for it. We peel back the layers of sand and time to understand how this isolated outpost, just miles from any major civilization, became a magnet for both the Gilded Age's greatest entrepreneurs and its most hardened criminals. This is the story of Frisco, the ghost town whose memory is still stained with silver and sin. Number 2. The richest mine on Earth. The genesis of Frisco lies in an astounding geological anomaly. In 1875, prospectors exploring the rugged mineral mountains stumbled upon something that defied belief, the Horn Silver Mine. This wasn't a standard vein of ore. It was a veritable subterranean mountain of almost pure silver chloride. Historians and geologists agree that the Horn Silver Mine represented perhaps the richest single deposit of silver ore ever discovered on the planet. The silver was so concentrated and high-grade that early miners didn't even need traditional blasting. They could simply cut the ore out of the rock face with axes and chisels. The statistics were staggering. The ore contained, on average, over 300 ounces of silver per ton, an absurd figure that quickly made the mine owners multi-millionaires, even in 19th century dollars. From this single source, an estimated $68 million worth of silver was extracted during its peak, a figure equivalent to billions today. This incredible wealth didn't just enrich a few individuals, it funded an entire global industry. The rush was on. News of the Horn Silver Mine traveled faster than any telegraph, pulling thousands of hopeful miners, shrewd investors, and, inevitably, opportunistic criminals toward the remote Utah desert, setting the stage for one of the most explosive yet short-lived communities in the history of the American West. Number 3. Gold Rush Gone Silver. The term gold rush is familiar, but Frisco experienced something unique, a silver rush, arguably more intense and condensed than any gold frenzy. The speed of the town's growth was its defining characteristic. Before the discovery, the area was barren, marked only by desert scrub. Within 5 years of the Horn Silver Mine opening, especially after the Utah Southern Railroad extended its line directly into the area in 1880, Frisco exploded into a thriving city of approximately 6,000 residents. But unlike many slower-growing Western settlements, Frisco had no time for planning or establishing social norms. The populace was transient, overwhelmingly male, and singularly focused on the immediate acquisition of wealth. They came from every corner of the globe: Irish miners, Chinese laborers, Cornish engineers, all drawn by the siren call of easy riches. This sudden influx created an instant, hyper-capitalist environment, driven by the relentless extraction of silver, meant that order was secondary to profit, leading directly to the town's infamous reputation for violence. 4.23 saloons and 12 murders a night. Frisco wasn't built for families. It was built for debauchery and dissipation. At its peak, this relatively small town boasted an astonishing 23 functioning saloons, several dance halls, gambling dens, and numerous brothels, often referred to as cribs. Alcohol flowed freely and the profits were colossal. The sheer density of drinking establishments and the high-stakes, high-stress lives of the miners created a perpetual state of chaos. The law was, for all intents and purposes, absent. Local reports from the era indicate that the violence was so routine that an average of 1 murder per day was committed in Frisco, with some particularly brutal nights seeing the death toll climb as high as 12. The constant turnover of the population and the lack of a strong, consistent judicial presence meant that criminals rarely faced justice. Disputes were settled with fists, knives, or, more often, firearms. The town's reputation was so fearsome that even seasoned stagecoach drivers were hesitant to stop there overnight. The only solution for the continuous stream of bodies was the creation of a massive, haphazard burial ground on the outskirts of town, grimly nicknamed Boot Hill, where many of the victims, mostly unnamed, were interred, marking Frisco as a place where life was cheap and the primary business was not just mining, but murder. Beehive kilns, the industrial heart. While the Horn Silver Mine was Frisco's beating heart, the massive, surviving beehive charcoal kilns were its lungs. The rich silver ore extracted from the Horn Mine could not be processed into pure metal without an immense steady supply of heat. This heat was generated by charcoal, produced by burning wood in a low-oxygen environment, a task accomplished in these dozens of colossal stone, beehive-shaped structures. Situated just outside of town, these kilns are perhaps the most impressive and lasting structures Frisco ever built. They represent the incredible scale of the industrial operation required to sustain the town's output. Wood was sourced from as far as 30 miles away and hauled to the kilns, where it was slowly baked into high-quality charcoal. 7. The day the earth shook. The relentless focus on profit and the chaotic rush for silver meant that safety and sustainability were entirely ignored. The owners of the Horn Silver Mine were notoriously greedy, cutting corners wherever possible, most catastrophically in the timbering and shoring up of the enormous underground caverns they were carving out. They extracted the richest ore without heed for the structural integrity of the rock above. This short-sighted greed led to the inevitable disaster. On February 12, 1885, the day began like any other. But deep below Frisco, the structural supports holding up the Horn Silver Mine finally failed. The earth began to shake violently. Witnesses described a terrifying series of tremors as the immense empty caverns collapsed inward, creating a massive subsidence that registered miles away. Fortunately, due to the hour of the collapse, the loss of life was minimal. But the economic damage was absolute. The primary, richest, and most productive section of the Horn Silver Mine, the very foundation of Frisco's wealth, was destroyed and permanently sealed off by millions of tons of fallen rock. The geological miracle that created Frisco was, in a moment of terrifying, thunderous destruction, reversed. 8. The end of the silver. The collapse of the Horn silver mine in 1885 was not just a structural disaster, it was the town's death warrant. The rich, easily accessible silver was gone, buried under tons of rubble. The remaining ore was of much lower grade and far more difficult, and thus less profitable, to extract. The lifeblood of Frisco was suddenly cut off. Within weeks, the exodus began. The thousands who had rushed in with hopes of quick riches now packed their bags, leaving behind the lawmen, the saloon owners, and the struggling businesses. The entire ecosystem built around the mine crumbled instantly. The railway lines remained, but their purpose was dramatically reduced. The high wages disappeared, the cost of living, already inflated, could no longer be sustained by the few remaining miners, and the once roaring town began a slow, painful, irreversible slide into oblivion. This disaster served as a brutal lesson about the volatility of the boom and bust cycle. Frisco proved that when a town's entire existence is predicated on a single, finite natural resource, the moment that resource disappears, the town quickly follows. 9. A city drains away. The process was slow, agonizing, and complete. Following the 1885 disaster, Frisco began to literally drain away. The population plummeted from 6,000 to less than 500 within the next 15 years. The magnificent structures that had symbolized its temporary glory, the Wells Fargo offices, the grand saloons, the miners' boarding houses, were dismantled piece by piece. The wood and materials were often scavenged and shipped out on the very railroad that once brought them in, used to build homes and businesses in more stable, surviving settlements. By 1920, only a handful of determined families remained. The post office, the last official link to the outside world, finally closed its doors in 1928, marking the town's official abandonment. The forces of nature, the desert winds, the intense sun, and the occasional flash flood took over where the people left off. Today, only the resilient stone foundations, the silent cemetery, and the stoic, abandoned charcoal kilns survive, standing guard over what was once a crucible of wealth and lawlessness, a profound testament to the temporary nature of human ambition against the indifference of the high desert. 10. Frisco. Silence in the Silver Hills. Today, Frisco is a museum of silence, its dramatic history preserved only in crumbling rock and forgotten graves. The only noise is the whistle of the wind through the abandoned shafts. The town is now a stark visual contrast, the violence and chaos of the 1880s replaced by profound stillness. Visitors walk among the ruins, tracing the outlines of where Main Street once stood, trying to imagine the roar of the saloons, the clanging of the railroad, and the daily gunshots. The beehive kilns, the stone foundations of the furnaces, and the countless markers on Boot Hill are the physical relics of a dream that burned too bright and died too quickly. Frisco is more than just a ghost town. It is a permanent marker of the ultimate risk taken in the American West, the belief that infinite wealth could be extracted from a finite earth. Its story remains a compelling cautionary tale, a reminder that even the richest town on earth can disappear almost without a trace, leaving behind only the echo of its violent, glorious